Hey everyone, thank you for joining us at our webinar this afternoon, Transitioning Young Children in Divorce in a Healthy Way. My name is Aishah McCoy. I am a family law attorney and a wills and trust attorney here in Austin, Texas. I own a family-centered practice here in town and have been practicing in Travis and the surrounding counties for almost 12 years now. I am also a single mother and an amateur boxer, so our team has the wherewithal to handle even the most high conflict matters. But what we really specialize in is ushering families into new expressions of their relationships in a very healthy way. I am joined here by my colleague, Amy Thome, and I'll go ahead and have her introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Dr. Amy Thome. I am a licensed clinical psychologist working here in the Austin area in private practice. I relocated to the Austin area from Chicago in 2019 with my husband and two children. I have a passion for working with children and young adults and adults. I also spend a lot of time working with parents and families. I currently provide individual therapy for people who are experiencing challenges with anxiety and depression. Sometimes they are going through life transitions or have difficulties at school or in their relationships. I have had the unique opportunity to work with people of all ages in a number of environments over the last 13 years. So I've worked in private practice setting, I have worked in inpatient hospitals, and I also completed some clinical training working in a juvenile detention center. I also have experience working with doing psychological assessments and school advocacy. So that means, individuals that are struggling with learning disabilities or ADHD or having difficulties at school, their parents will bring them in for an evaluation. And if it's warranted, then we pursue an IEP plan for this child and get them the services that they need. So a lot of times I help parents go in and advocate for services at school. I use an integrative approach to therapy. And so what that means, I really strive to understand the person in all areas of their functioning. So we look at their mood, how they're doing in their relationships, their sleep and their appetite, their energy level. We really look at the person as a whole and try to get to know them as a whole person. We look at all areas of the functioning. And I try to provide a therapeutic environment that feels very collaborative and supportive in nature. So I look at myself as a collaborator and walking with this person on their journey. For adults, I view them oftentimes as kind of the expert in their life, and I am here to kind of walk with them, help them learn new skills, and provide them some guidance as they kind of come to their own conclusions in therapy. The therapy with children might look a little bit different, and we might use different interventions with them. But right now, we are doing all sessions via telehealth due to COVID. Hopefully, in the future, we'll be able to get back to the office. That's really, really beneficial for the children to be in office with their clinician. But right now, everything is done via telehealth.
Very, very nice. And thank you again for joining us today, Amy. I'm very excited about the content we'll be able to provide our viewers. The purpose of this seminar is to provide some general information to the community about divorce. For now, we will be hosting monthly virtual seminars about specific topics on divorce. This month, we'll be discussing tips on how to transition divorce your young children in divorce in a healthy and happy way from both a legal and therapeutic standpoint. This is going to be part of a two-part series on transitioning children in divorce. And next month, we're going to focus our discussion on transitioning adolescents in divorce. So please feel free to visit our firm's Instagram bio, A McCoy at Law, for the links to our other co-parenting resources and webinars. We intend to record each of these sessions so that our viewers can tune in whenever it is convenient for them. We also hope to form a community within the participants of these seminars. We hope that you all come back and are able to connect with each other. And so I've watched from what my own clients have gone through and from my own perspective as someone who has gone through the emotionally turbulent process myself, I can say that it can be a very isolating experience. So we formed this group to connect and show support for each other through this shared experience. So let's turn our discussion to the issues that younger children, specifically kids under 12, face when it comes to divorce. So younger children may lose a sense of security and feel frightened. Some may absorb the feelings of their parents and feel like it's their fault. They may also feel anxious by the changes to their routine and schedule. And as a result of all this, they may have some trouble adjusting to these changes. So, Amy, how do younger kiddos handle their parents' divorce? What are some common issues or themes rather that you see when you're working with this age group?
Sure. So I think it's really important for the parents to understand some of the challenges they may face, and thinking about it through a lens of the child and not just the parents. Understanding that the kiddo is going to experience this process very differently than an adult might experience it, right? And so through the eyes of the children, when their parents get divorced, they experience their family unit being divided into two separate units. They're experiencing many changes as this occurs. So they're learning to transition between two homes. They are living in two separate physical environments, one of which will be perhaps unfamiliar, different to them. They might they will have a new bedroom and maybe a new bed. They're going to have new toys, and their belongings will be different as they transition between the two homes. Another important thing that might be really different and destabilizing for them is the differences in their routines and their rituals. So the things that they could count on that kept them stable, things that were predictable to them, that might look a little bit different as they're transitioning between homes. So much of what was familiar to them is now different. And once that unit is divided, there's also the daily absence of a parent. So that's really tough for a lot of kiddos. They may struggle with not being able to be with one parent without being apart from the other. This may result in, an increase in anxiety or fear. Another important thing for the parents to understand is that children are often the sponge of the home. So what does that mean? They are absorbing and soaking in so much of what is going on around them. So they are sitting back, they're observing, they're noticing, how are their parents reacting and responding to this experience? What is the emotional temperature in the home? How are the parents communicating? What is going on in that home environment? And they absorb a lot of that and oftentimes aren't expressing how they feel about that, because these emotions and feelings around this are very big and unfamiliar a lot of times. Um, they may struggle to process these changes. And, this is a really great thing to bring to therapy, and really, really valuable part of the child having their own therapist is being able to have this safe space so that they can go and process these big feelings and these big emotions that they're having as they go through this process.
Oh, awesome. Well, Amy, thank you for providing your
Mhm,
perspective from your practice.
mhm.
What are some signs or symptoms that you see in younger kiddos when it comes to the way they process divorce? What are some things that divorcing parents should look for?
So, there's a lot of things that they may see. And, one of the most important things to kind of take note of is there a regression in behavior? Are they becoming more dependent on the parent? Is the parent noticing that the child might have increase in bedwetting? Or if they were potty trained before, are they no longer displaying that they're able to do that? Is there more tantrums? Is there more of the whining? Are they having difficulty sleeping? Are they having a problem falling asleep? Are you seeing nightmares, distressful sleep? They may even see an increase in like compulsive behaviors or speech challenges that may present as stuttering, or anxiety in social situations where they have to speak. There could be a presence or increase in anxiety. So they might ask a lot of questions, clarifying things, wanting to know what's going to happen next. Who might be picking them up from this practice? Where are they going to spend their holidays? Who will be there to celebrate birthday? Really trying to regain this sense of stability and control and understanding and making sense of this new normal that they've been thrust into. They also might have challenges at school. So they may have trouble focusing. There might be inattention. The teacher might notice things and say to the parent, they're really just withdrawn or they're not really engaged in class. There might be acting out behavior. So you might see that show up in their behavior and how they're relating to their peers. Um, you also might see separation anxiety. So that's something that we see a lot with kiddos as they're transitioning back and forth between the two homes, and thinking about, you know, what it means to go to this person's house. Some of them may not have this sense of time yet. So thinking about, well, if you're going every few days, what does that mean? So
Mhm.
having the understanding that those transitions might be really challenging for them and preparing them, providing some stability around those transitions, as they're starting to navigate that new normal.
Great. So now that you have gone over some of the signs that parents have to watch for in their kiddos' behavior, Amy, what are some things that these parents can do to help their kids cope with the change?
So there's a couple things. I when I work with parents, I really like to talk about some of the do's and do nots. So there's a lot of things you can do, right, to help your kiddo navigate this experience. And I think one of the most important goals is create and establish a sense of stability and predictability, helping them know what's next, what to expect, to calm their nerves, to help them decrease that anxiety around the transitions and the unknowns. They can do a lot with the routines and rituals. We talked about that earlier, but really making sure that everyone's on the same page, that we have routines in place that the child can count on. So keeping a time schedule, having a weekly planner so they know, what days they're going to be going to the other parent's house, what activities they have coming up. For kiddos that age, those visual calendars are really helpful. So doing a little bit of prep the night before, saying, tomorrow is this day and this is what we can expect. Also making sure that things are prepared and packed the night before, so the morning doesn't feel rushed and chaotic. So there's that stability in their routine. There's some calm around the routine. Also thinking about rituals. Would it be helpful for your child to have the exact same bedtime routine? Have certain books that they read, or discussing and letting them have a voice in what that routine and that ritual might look like for them, what they think would be helpful. A lot of kiddos really do well with transitional objects. So that could be a blanket or a picture, a toy. It could be something that they choose that they can bring, between the homes that gives them that sense of stability, security, something that becomes really predictable for them, that they have that with them, something to kind of soothe. Um, the other piece of it is really reassurance, reminding that child that they are loved, that you are there to listen, you are there to answer questions, you're going to support them as they navigate this big change. Expressing that you're committed to making this new family arrangement work and you're really going to help them navigate it. So, really, just kind of reassuring that you're on their team, that they can trust you, that they can come to you for support, that it's okay to have these big feelings. um, you know Ideally, if a parent can do this cooperative co-parenting, that would be fantastic. We know that's not always the case, but it's certainly something we want to strive to do if possible. This might require some compromising between the two parents, in terms of scheduling and different activities and things, but really just having this cohesive, united front, that we are your parents and we're here to do what's best for you, so that the child can really trust that the parents have their best interest in mind. A couple things that you want to avoid. So, the the tug of war that often happens, not necessarily intentionally, but the putting the child in this position to choose between parents. Do you want to go here or here? Do you, having too many choices, where the child feels like they have to kind of step in and be the adult to mediate between the parents, that can be really, really stressful and anxiety provoking for the child. You certainly want to avoid blaming. So, using language where the child feels that you're blaming the other parent. When parents share overtly or covertly that other parent is to blame for the divorce, the child might feel anger or guilt or confusion. They might have anger toward that parent. That can result in an issue with the attachment with that parent. They can feel confused about how to connect with that parent, that the certain parent caused all of this to happen. It creates a really distressing experience for the child, when they don't know, when someone's assigning blame and fault for something like this. Um, you certainly want to avoid the name calling and the put downs. That can be really, really harmful for the child, to be in a space where they're hearing that language and talking poorly about the other parent, who they love and are spending time with and have a relationship with. So if possible, the parents want to really keep a neutral, cooperative stance. This allows the child to feel love. It allows them to feel attached to both parents, and it doesn't disrupt those alliances. Um, it can be really difficult for the child to transition between the homes. They feel sometimes that they need to align with whichever parent they're in the space with. So, for example, when they go to one parent's house and that parent is feeling really sad or overwhelmed or angry, that child feels often that they need to align with that parent, also be angry and sad. And so they really struggle to kind of process and identify their own feelings because they're feeling they need to support the parent and be aligned with what they're experiencing, which can be really confusing when they go to the other person, their other parent. And those feelings or their response to this divorce might be completely different. So you have this kiddo that's navigating between two homes and two completely different responses to the process, two completely different sets of emotions, and they're going to feel very confused and overwhelmed with how they're really feeling. So it's really helpful to try to have that neutral stance, that cooperative stance, the co-parenting when possible. That's really going to set that kiddo up to transition in a healthy way.
Thank you, Amy, for those do's and do nots. When I meet with clients, I try to emphasize the importance of seeking professional guidance. And I always recommend therapy, and I really encourage my clients to be open to it. Amy, could you give us your viewpoint on why you think this or this therapy is so important? What type of support should these folks be getting?
Sure. So, when I'm working with parents that are going through divorce, I really encourage the parents to seek out support for themselves first, and or in addition to for their child, thinking about individual therapy for themselves, support group within friend systems, or thinking about group therapy, anything you can do to help you go through that process in a healthy way, making sure that you're having the support that you need so that you can show up for your kiddo. That's really, really important. And really finding someone for your child to connect with. A therapist would be ideal for them to have as they navigate this process, when possible, so that they have really kind of like their person, that they can go to and talk to. Um, the therapist has this really important role. When a child starts therapy, this provides an opportunity for the child to really process their feelings. They learn new skills for how to manage their anxiety or their stress, learn new ways to cope. It gives them the safe space to really unpack and understand how they're feeling. So for kiddos, a lot of times it's hard to verbalize that. So they may come in and they may present as a very angry kiddo or very sad. And, the therapist in their role are able to kind of help the child form an understanding and articulate and being able to describe and work through what they're going through, and find ways to cope with that, and to ask for support and to share that with their parents. It provides a safe and stable outlet for the child. When we're talking about before, the stability that the child needs during this time, this becomes this stable, safe place for a child, to really understand and cope with what's going on around them that may feel very unstable.
Mhm.
The therapeutic relationship is one that provides that sense of consistency and stability. It's this neutral person that they get to go to. It's their person. It provides a safe space. They get to talk openly about their feelings. They don't have to think about or be concerned about how their parents might respond. So, a lot of times parents come to their kiddos and they're sharing their feelings. And like we said, kids are sponges. They're very observant. They're very in tune. And so, a parent is responding the best way that they know how. And a child has the ability to kind of read that sometimes and maybe starts to feel, this might not be something I need to share with my parents. This might make them sad. This might make them upset. Right. So a therapist, provides a setting where they can come and talk about anything. They can share any feelings. There's no judgment. There's no reaction. There's no this side or that side. It's just a safe space. Um, Another great thing about working with a therapist is oftentimes they get to collaborate with the parents and sometimes even the school when appropriate. So a lot of times I spend time working with the parents, educating them, providing tools and support, helping them understand, the child's point of view and what they might be going through. How do you support your child at home as they're going through and unpacking some of these really big feelings? Teaching the parents these skills so that they can encourage the child to use them in the home. Another thing, trying to get the school involved if it's appropriate and will be helpful. This kind of acts as another layer of support for the child. So, before I had mentioned that the child might have difficulties in school, this might show up as behavioral issues. And if the counselor at school or the teacher's not aware of what the kiddo's going through at home, they might see this behavior as, this child needs to have behavior remediation. There's other things going on. If they have the context and they understand, wow, this child's really going through a big transition at home. We need to support them. We need to provide some social work time for them. We need to pair them with other children that might be going through something similar, right? And provide that extra layer of support at school. That's extremely valuable. So if the parents feel it's appropriate, pulling the school into the loop, that might be really helpful. One thing I do like to stress is this importance of boundaries in therapy and understanding that, depending on the age, when the kiddo comes in, allowing that to be their space. So, a lot of times as parents, we want to know, what are they talking about and what's going on and what can I do? And, trusting that the therapist is going to pull you in when you need to be pulled in. They're going to provide information as needed, but let them do what they do, right? Let them do what they do best and help your kiddo. And then they're going to pull you in and educate and provide skills. But we certainly don't want the child to feel that the space isn't safe for them to be
Mhm.
open, honest, and vulnerable, right? We don't want the kiddo to feel like they're coming in and everything they say is going to be repeated to their parent, especially if they feel that they have to pick sides and, not wanting things to get shared with this parent or that parent. So, I really encourage the parents to understand that piece of it and how important that is, and also to not come in with an agenda and saying, I want you to talk about this with my kid and they need to know what this parent did, and knowing that that's supposed to be their space for them to get to deal with their big emotions as they're going through this. It's certainly helpful, for the therapist to have context, to have feedback, to gather information, but doing that in an appropriate way. So the way that looks for me, I typically have regular communication with the parents outside of sessions. So communicating either via email or a phone call, we set that up on a regular basis so the parent feels in the loop, so that our goals are aligned and we're discussing progress, but not where I'm bringing the parent into each session and, at the end, and the child sitting in the waiting room feeling like, that everything they've just shared is being told to the parent. So the boundaries around that's really, really important. Um, the last piece about the therapy and understanding what that looks like for a kiddo and how that's helpful, we use a different approach with children. So thinking about, for adults or even, adolescents, they come into therapy. A lot of times that session is spent talking, expressing feelings, problem solving. There's a lot of discussion that's happening in that session. And with kiddos, it's going to look very different. You are certainly going to have ones that will come in and chat with you for the entire time. But a lot of them, we use art, we use play, we use different modalities so that they're able to express themselves in a way without having to verbalize necessarily what they're feeling. It's this kind of free form of expression and being able to use art to draw and talk about the family dynamics. We use doll houses and puppets and different things that really allow the child to express what might be going on for them internally that they don't have the words to verbalize.
Oh, very nice. Well, Amy, this is all great info on how a therapist can help ease the transition in divorce. And now that you've given your perspective on how a qualified therapist can help you provide guidance on transitioning younger children in divorce, the next question is, how can your family law attorney help? Now, a good family law attorney will always put your kids' needs first. So I usually host interviews with my clients to understand their family dynamic and history. Divorce changes so many things about a child's life. And when a court makes a ruling, the standard that they use as the basis of any decision is what is in the best interest of the child. And the child's best interest really depends on a myriad of factors that we discuss with the clients in depth. For many of my cases, and the family code, which is the statutory rules governing every family law case, the code is interested in preserving the status quo or the lifestyle that the kiddos are used to. They do this in an attempt to minimize disruption, but every family is different. And by recognizing those differences and addressing the needs of the family, you can help your kiddos avoid some of the stress and negativity that is derived from divorce. Now, one thing that's important to note is that the family code says that frequent and continuous contact with both parents is usually what is in the best interests of the child. With that said, a good family law attorney will also be able to craft a parenting plan that allows the kiddos to have that time carved out to build a relationship with both mom and dad. Also, child support. It's an issue that frequently comes up in a lot of my cases. And the question that usually comes up is who has to pay child support and how much? In many of my cases, the higher wage earner usually, but not always, remits child support that is in accordance with the statutory guidelines. And these funds are remitted to the state disbursement unit within the Texas Attorney General's office. The Texas Attorney General's office is an entity, a government entity that keeps an accounting of all the funds received, and they also disperse those funds to the recipient of child support. The code just really wants to ensure that your children will be taken care of financially. So that's the reason why there's that governmental entity that regulates the payments when they are remitted and when they're dispersed. So ensuring that this also ensures that your child is insured through private or public health benefits. Now, Without a doubt, parenting young children can be a challenge. It can be even more cumbersome when you're going through a divorce. But if we are aware of the issues and sensitive to the signs of struggle, as well as able to address the needs of your children, it can really ease the burden of divorce upon them. Amy, do you happen to have any closing advice for our viewers?
Sure. I just really want to, one point to drive home is that we are, resilient human beings and that
Absolutely.
children are extremely resilient. And there are so many resources available to support parents and children as they navigate this process. So, really just encouraging parents to take the time, and as difficult as that is, a mother of two, I get that, take the time to take care of yourself in this process, right? And seek the support for yourself so that you can support your kiddo. Right. And being able to reach out and let those around you help, as you navigate this process. It's certainly going to make a difference, in how your child transitions through this process and this really big change. So taking advantage of the supports that are available and knowing that you guys will get through it and that you're very resilient and able to navigate this with support.
Absolutely. Just know that you are not alone.
Hmm.
So thank you everyone for joining us on our webinar today on transitioning younger children in divorce. We certainly hope that you guys have a chance to connect with each other, and we will now take your questions.